Welcome back for our next one. This one is on measures of variation. You won't be able to tell if my hair's gotten any longer because I'm filming this one the same time as I did the line plots one. You'll notice I'm still wearing my orange Outlaws sweatshirt. So keep checking as we get to later in this week and then next week and see if my hair gets longer and longer as I keep re-recording these videos for you guys. So this one is a little bit longer in terms of it's got a little bit more for vocabulary. So we're going to take a little bit of time to fill up this first part. Please make sure you get all these vocabulary terms down and a good definition for each one of them. But basically, this whole lesson is, before we were talking about median, mode, and range. That's kind of the middle of our data. Now we're not worried about the middle of the data. Now we're looking at how spread out is the data. We're going to kind of break it up into chunks instead of focusing on just the middle section of it. So we've got some vocabulary that we want to get down. The range, this one we already know. It's the difference between the highest and the lowest values. So that hasn't changed for us. Next is the word quartile. Values that divide the data into 4 equal parts. That's where that word quart or quart comes in. So think of quarters, 4 quarters in a dial, 4 quarters in a dollar, sorry. Or quarts, there are 4 quarts in a gallon. That Q-U-A-R-T is kind of code for 4. It kind of tells us that we're dealing with 4 of something. So we're breaking the data up into 4 equal parts. Okay? Don't be afraid to pause as you're writing this vocabulary down. Don't feel like you got to keep up with me. Listen and then jot it down. Pause as much as you need to. The first quartile is the median, the middle, of the lower half of the data. So you'll see what that means here in a couple minutes. But basically we're finding the middle of just half of the data. The third quartile is the median of the upper half of the data. So first quartile means we find the median of the lower part. Then third quartile is the median of the upper half. Some of you may be wondering where the second quartile is. Well, think of 2 quarters. Well, that's really half of something. That's half of a dollar. So the second quartile is really just the median of the whole set of data, just the middle of the whole thing. And then the last one, this is the one people have the hardest time remembering, the interquartile range, or the IQR. Basically think of it as it's the range of the quartiles, the first to third quartile. It's the difference, subtracting, the first and third quartiles from each other. So the range is the difference between all of the values. The interquartile range is just the difference between those 2 quartiles. All right, make sure you have all that vocabulary down, and then hit play, and we'll continue on. All right, so again, to save yourself some time, if you are writing down this information, think about what the first thing we're going to have to do if we're finding the median. First thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to put the data in order. So don't feel like you need to write down this data in this random order. If you're writing it down, you might as well write it in order so it's already ready for you. So let's put it in order. I have 2, 10, 12, 13, 14. And then I have 15, 17, 18. And I have another 18. And I have a 20 and a 21. As you get to these, it's super important to make sure we have all of the data values in our set. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Good. So let's knock out the easy one first. The range. The range is just the highest minus the lowest. 21 minus 2 gives me a range of 19. Next is the median. And I know in our previous lessons we talked about kind of crossing them out from either end. Here's the problem. If you remember our first and third quartile, they're the middle of the lower half and the middle of the upper half. It's going to be hard to figure that out if we've crossed them out already. So for the median, I like to just kind of mark them, maybe a little dot. So I'm going to mark one on either end. It's kind of like slashing it like we did in the median lesson, but this time I'm not physically crossing out the numbers, so I can go back and use them again later. But my median is 15. Now I'm going to find my first quartile. Remember, the first quartile is the median, the middle, of the lower half of the data. Well, 15 is my median, so I'm not going to consider the 15 anymore. Its job is already as the median. I'm just going to focus on this lower half of the data, and I'm going to find the middle. So I'm going to cross out from either end, and 12 is my first quartile. It's the middle of the lower half of the data. Same thing up here. I'm going to focus on the upper half of the data, and I'm going to find the middle. Cross out into the middle and find my 18. And then my IQR is the difference between my third quartile and my first quartile. My 18 minus 12 gives me 6. So I put it in order, found my median, found the middle of the lower half, found the middle of the upper half. Those are my quartiles. And then the IQR is just the difference between those quartiles. All right, now we got one more vocabulary term to throw in there. And I know this one came up a little bit in our activity the other day, an outlier. An outlier is a data value that's either much greater or much less than the median. So a number that just doesn't fit with all the rest of it. It's not just a little bit away, it's like all the way across the line from each other. It's not somebody who's just standing a little bit away from the group, it's like somebody on the opposite side of the room. They're clearly not with the rest of the group. So let's do this again. First step, put them in order. You can't start finding anything until you get those numbers in order. So I've got 65. I don't know why it's going so slow. And then I've got 88 and 88. I don't know why it's being so slow. Oh, I didn't want to cross that one out yet, sorry. And then I've got 89, 91, 92, 93, and then my 95 that I accidentally crossed out already. All right, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sets of data. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sets of data, pieces of data. So first thing, the range, the high minus the low. 95 minus 65 is 30. That one's nice and easy. Now we're going to find our median. We're going to look to the middle. So we're going to mark on either end. But notice this time I have 2 left in the middle. Okay? So my median is going to be in between those 2 numbers. That's going to be my median. Well, you can do it 2 ways. So you can think about, well, what's halfway in between 89 and 91? Or if you remember from our median, mode, and range lesson, when you have 2 numbers left in the middle, you find the average or the mean of those 2 numbers. You add them up, 89 plus 91, and then you're going to divide it by 2 because you had 2 pieces of data. 89 plus 91 is 180, divided by 2 gives me 90. My median is 90. Now, here's the part to be careful of. And remember in the last problem, our median was actually one of our numbers right in the middle. So we circled it, and we said, okay, that number's not in play anymore. We're not going to use that one. But this time, my median was in between those 2 numbers. So the 89 is still part of this lower half. The 91 is still part of this upper half. Because it wasn't actually my median, those numbers are still in play as we're doing our sorting. Now I'm going to find the median of the lower half. Again, I got 2 numbers, so I need what's in the middle of 88 and 88. Well, what's in the middle of 88 and 88? Well, that would be 88. Here, I'm going to cross out and find the middle. Again, I got 2 numbers left in my middle, so I want the middle of those 2 numbers. That's going to be my quartile 3. So I just found the middle of the lower half, the middle of the upper half. This time, 92 plus 93 divided by 2. Well, 92 plus 93 is 185 divided by 2 gives me 92.5, which makes sense if you think about it. What's in between 92 and 93? 92.5, 92.5. My IQR is subtracting the third quartile minus the first quartile. So 92.5 minus 88 is 4.5. And then my outlier. is there a number that's either way too big or way too small in comparison to the rest of them? In this case, I would say 65 is my outlier. All the rest of the numbers are in the 80s and 90s. That one's all the way down in the 60s. That's a long ways off from the rest of our data. All right, one more. If you think you've got this one, go ahead and give it a try on your own. Pause it and work through it, then hit play, and then see how you did in comparison to my answers. All right, so I start by putting them in order, 14, 19, and then I have 27, 28, 28. I don't know why it's being so laggy and slow, but we'll make do. Then I have 30 and 51. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of data. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of data. All right, so first I find my range, my high minus my low. 51 minus 14 is 37. Then I find my median. I sort to the middle. One from either end, evenly doing it until I get to my middle. That's my median. Okay. This time my median fell right on one of my numbers. So I'm not going to count the 28 as either the upper or lower half. So now I'm going to find the middle of the lower half. Well, there's only 3 numbers, so if I cross out 1 from either end, 19 is my first quartile, middle of the lower half. Then I find the middle of the upper half. Again, only 3 numbers, so that's easy. Cross out 1 from either end. The number in the middle is my third quartile. Oh, didn't mean to write third quartile, I meant to write the actual number. That's going to be 30. My IQR is my third quartile minus my first quartile. That's 11. And then outliers. And there's not always going to be an outlier, so that's okay. But if you look at your numbers, I got a couple in the teens, a couple in the 20s, and a 30, which is pretty close to those 20s. So those are all close enough to each other. 51, however, is clearly much bigger than all the rest, so we're going to count that one our outlier. All right, hope that makes sense. Now we'll get ready to do a little practice.